Many years ago, people thought Airbnbs would kill hotels. And simply put, that has not happened at all. And hotels are for sure here to stay. So today I want to talk about why the business model of Airbnbs is fundamentally not a threat to hotels and why hotels will continue to persist. I want to start this out by saying I have nothing against Airbnb as a company or a business model. As someone who's been through Y Combinator, I've heard Brian Chesky speak. I think what they're doing is an amazing product, and I think the company will be around for a very long time. But I think there are a few fundamental things that they might be missing in their strategy that I think would be interesting to discuss. And so one of the fundamental aspects that I think Airbnb is totally missing is the lack of appeal to any business travelers. Obviously, this comes from someone who's like a points person and loves loyalty programs and all that. But simply put, Airbnb doesn't have a loyalty program. And the problem with this, right, the logic behind for Airbnb on this is, why are we giving customers this rebate on things that don't really matter, right? Why don't we just make the product really good and make them want to come back? That's all great. One of the things, though, that really does benefit hotels with their loyalty programs is business travelers absolutely love them. Because what happens is it's a form of payment almost to the business traveler, where my company pays for my travel to stay at this Marriott for 3 weeks a year. Whatever, right? Maybe I'm a consultant, maybe I'm traveling all the time. I get those points, I get those elite qualifying nights, I get the status benefits, and then when it's time to use my PTO and time to take my family on vacation, I have now built up this huge points balance. So by me staying loyal to this hotel brand, I end up amassing this like big points balance because my company's paying for it, and then I get to go on vacation with my family. And yes, there's an argument to like, why are we not just taking the savings and passing it on to the company because the company doesn't really care. But it's something that for the psychology reasons of it, people really like it. People like receiving a rebate. It makes people pick a particular hotel brand irrationally, and it makes people make irrational decisions. And I think that's something always really to remember in any type of business application is that people are not rational, right? People irrationally choose things all the time, and I think it's no different with hotels and loyalty programs, and people make decisions that economically might not make sense, but to them emotionally do make sense. And so I think if Airbnb were to implement some type of like a business travel or loyalty program, I think it would be really interesting, and I think there would be this potential shift of certain people wanting to stay in Airbnbs more often because they feel like they are benefiting something where they're actually receiving some type of rebate, and it rewards them for continuing to come back. Because as it currently stands, there's no real reason for me, after staying in 10 Airbnbs, to keep staying with Airbnbs. There's no sunk cost fallacy. If I stay at a Hyatt hotel and I earn 40 EQNs, 50 EQNs, I'm just 10 EQNs away from Globalist, which provides me a whole suite of benefits. And look, that's going to cause people to make irrational decisions and want to book Hyatts, even when maybe it's not the most optimal decision because there's this sunk cost fallacy. But that really doesn't exist with Airbnb, in the current state. And so I think it's costing them. I think another thing that is both the selling point and the downside of Airbnb is the lack of consistency. Hotel chains, love them or hate them, a lot of times they're very consistent. And this is what chains do very well. And this is something I've heard Rory Sutherland talk about this. And if you don't know him, he's a brilliant advertising guy. But basically, chains, for the most part, are really good at raising the floor for something. Not so much the ceiling, but they're great at raising the floor. Think about what Starbucks has done for coffee. Look, Starbucks is not some super aspirational premium brand where every time I go it's this like amazing mega experience, but it's pretty goddamn consistent, and it's pretty reliable. And that's what they've done. And that's what a lot of budget hotel chains try to do, right? That's like Hyatt Place, Holiday Inn, Courtyard. They try to be consistent as possible because they know when you're at these places, where they're not that expensive in these hotels, you don't really know what you're going to get. Consistency is key. And look, at high-end luxurious Airbnbs, right, the consistency probably doesn't matter. Similar to the luxury hotels, the consistency does not matter as much. But because of the fact Airbnbs are all unique, run by unique hosts, there's a lack of consistency. And for some people, obviously, this is going to be something that is really exciting to them. They get to try out new properties. They don't know what they're going to get exactly, and it's super unique, and that's great. But for people, for example, business travelers, they want something a little more consistent. They want to have a better understanding of what they're going to get when they're staying there, especially if you're doing travel for work for extended periods of time. And so, similar to the previous point, I think this is hurting them with business travelers in that regard. I think really the only thing they could probably do about this is try to make certain soft products standardized within an Airbnb ecosystem, similar to what Vacasa does, where Vacasa's, if you stayed at them in certain markets, they will essentially be managed by Vacasa. And so they'll have like the same toiletries, you'll interact with like the same people. It's closer to a hotel experience. I would not call it a hotel experience, but it's much more in line with that, and you have a much better idea of what you're getting. And that's one reason I've personally have enjoyed staying in Vacasa's, because I know there's a minimum service standard. When there have been issues, they've been quick to resolve them. One time I was in Hawaii, there was like the shower curtain was like pretty moldy. Honestly, not even like a big deal because it wasn't that much mold. I sent them a text or a call or something. It was like kind of late, I remember. Next morning, like 10 a.m., really nice representative was at my front door of the unit, brought like 2 different shower curtains for me to like pick between. She offered to install it. I was like, no worries, I got it. That was great. That was a great experience. And the fact that, Vacasa's been able to achieve like a closer level of service consistency, I think is really unique. And I think Airbnb, if they could do that, whether being like similar soft products, right, using the same towels, same beddings, same toiletries, having certain, management operations be kind of centralized, I think that could be really interesting in certain business markets. Because I think it is hurting them in that regard because there is this unknown factor where I don't exactly know what I'm going to get. And in that vein, the next problem, of course, is with the lack of consistency, is the problem of hosts increasingly turning this into what certain hotels are trying to do, and kind of like, I would say the equivalent of nickel and diming the guest. And what I mean by this is asking a guest to clean things unnecessarily, right? Obviously, there's going to be someone doing housekeeping in between each guests, saying things like strip the bed, run a load of laundry, do all these chores. And look, I'm not saying that's unreasonable per se, but if you're wanting to attract guests to have like a very easy experience, again, I keep pushing on business travelers, but again, especially for business travelers, they don't want to do that crap, okay? That's what's nice about a hotel. That's what so many people love about a hotel. You get to your hotel, you do what you need to do, you leave. You don't have to do anything. The towels are fresh, the bed is made, the trash is taken out. That is something that is really nice for a lot of people because it's consistent, right? And so I think for leisure travelers, maybe for extended travel, not as big of a deal, right? Because, okay, I don't need someone to make my bed every day. I don't need someone to take out the trash, like every little tiny trash can in the room, right? That's fine. But again, for business travelers and for people doing like shorter stays, they don't want to deal with that. And I think this would also kind of be solved if there was a more of a consistent system for host management and other things, because again, people wouldn't be as worried about this. This has kind of become a common trope in people talking about Airbnbs, having these poor host experiences. And I think it's something that for a lot of people, myself included, do sometimes like turn me off about an Airbnb because I'm like, look, I don't want to do chores on vacation. I don't really want to deal with an inconsistent host. I don't really know what I'm getting. Yes, there's like ratings and all that, but the fact that there's no centralized way to resolve issues other than, of course, like Airbnb customer service, which is shaky, to be fair, I think it's something that for a lot of people makes it unnecessarily difficult to kind of shift into the Airbnb ecosystem. And then, of course, there's like just more opaque fees with Airbnb. Obviously, there are issues like, again, no centralized service, but I think one thing that's interesting is also the search fatigue. And I think this is a challenge in the business model where because each property is unique, it makes it very tiresome and very tedious to search for Airbnbs in a market. This is somewhat helped by, of course, price filtering, but in certain markets, it becomes really annoying to search through specific Airbnb properties. And I think, like, for example, if I'm going to be searching in like a major city and I have a certain budget and the budget's fairly large, right? Like, there's going to be a million Airbnbs I could pick between. But for hotels, if I have I'm like, okay, I'm only going to filter by luxury brands. I want to be within these chains because I have these like loyalty programs. It's a much quicker search. And I think it's just like, for the example, if you give someone, there's studies where you give someone, like, let's say, put a bunch of jelly beans in front of them, okay? You give them 2 flavors of jelly beans, they pick one, they're going to be happy with their choice. You give them 50, they're not going to be happy with their choice. And I think the problem is like there's this search fatigue. Now, I don't really know how Airbnb would solve this. I think maybe adding ways to generatively like describe properties, maybe using AI to, given the images, being able to find ways to like describe the properties, make it easier for people to search through properties. But I think it is a challenge that I think that is not, this is one of those challenges that's like not really that solvable. And that's why I think hotels will still persist in this regard, because they are much easier to understand. Partly because they're operating at a larger scale, so you're going to have more data. And this is one final point I want to touch on is that you lose this social aspect of talking about a place with Airbnb that you have with hotels. A 1,000-room hotel has a lot of people staying there, a lot of people to talk about it, a lot of people to review it. There's a good chance my friend stayed there, a friend of a friend stayed there, that can answer questions I have about the hotel and was it a good experience. At an Airbnb, unless it was coordinated, that's just not going to happen. And so with hotels, there's this social advantage of I want safety, I want consistency. I can ask my friend what the experience was like. Oh, it was a good experience? Great, I can stay there. You don't get that with an Airbnb unless my friend has stayed there before, and that's highly unlikely, right? Given the fact that it's each unique property. And again, I don't think this is like a problem per se, as in like an issue with the program, but it's something that because the business models are so fundamentally different, I don't think it's necessarily something that like, oh yes, the rise of Airbnbs would ever like really be a threat to hotels in that regard. It's just not how it works. They're just operationally entirely different beasts. I think people pick hotels when they want a very consistent experience that is very little work with access to a lot of amenities in a short space. Most premium to luxury hotels have gyms on site, will have pools, will have restaurants, will have staff that are there 24/7. Airbnbs will have none of that. Okay, maybe at luxury Airbnbs, you have a pool, you have a gym that's much smaller, etc. But for the most part, the bar to reach that level of comfort and amenities is much lower in a hotel than it is at an Airbnb. And so I think this is why, like, fundamentally the business models are just totally different. I don't think they're going to overlap that much. And I think, if you're someone that wants a unique experience and wants to try experiencing life maybe more like a local or something like that, and you want to experience more of just like an authentic house experience, that's totally fine. Like I'm sure, like I've had good vacation rental experiences before, and I will continue to have them, but I don't think it is something that necessarily clashes with hotels. The only, I guess, advice I would have in theory, like into the void of Airbnb, is like they should probably do a better job attracting business travelers, because I think that is a market for them that they're likely doing not very well in. And if they were able to attract more business travelers, I think they would be more successful, especially if they added some type of a loyalty program or something in that regard. So I hope this episode was interesting, and I will see you in the next one.